Hello, welcome back to Getting Open with me, Andrea Miller. Oh my God, I am so excited to share this episode with you. I have one of the world's leading law of attraction experts on today. And whoa, we discuss so many genuinely actionable and cool and effective exercises, affirmations, and takeaways that will sincerely empower you. Whatever it is you really want in your life, this episode will help you get it. And spoiler alert, your future self already has it. So let's get into it. Emma Mumford is the UK's leading voice in the law of attraction, and she is our incredible guest today. Emma is an award-winning life coach, 3 times best-selling author of the books Positively Wealthy, Hurt, Healing, Healed, and Manifesting Rituals. As well, she's a manifestation YouTuber, public speaker, and host of the #1 spirituality podcast on iTunes, Aligned Abundance. Emma's work helps you turn your dream life into an abundant reality using the law of attraction and spirituality. Plus, I'm adding this little bit in. She has so many rituals and so much on unconditional love and so much more. Her work has helped hundreds of thousands of people globally over the last decade, and she is one of my new favorite people. In fact, I just managed to finish Hurt, Healing, Healed. So I've got some questions from the book, and I've been listening to your pod and watching your clips. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. I feel so honored to be asked to be on your show. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, you are the queen of the law of attraction, and let's start there, because there are so many myths and misconceptions. People even get mad about it, but you explain it beautifully. So what is it and how do we use it?
Yeah, and you're so right, because it's become such a popular word in our world. When I came across manifestation, 10 years ago now, it was so taboo, especially here in the UK. Like, nobody was talking about it. It was woo-woo, it was spiritual. Nobody knew what it was. So it was obviously a very, very different landscape. Whereas now, every man and their dog is talking about manifesting. You can't watch most shows nowadays without someone saying, I'm manifesting, or, these terms being used. So, it's incredible that more and more people are talking about it. But with that comes more questions, like you say, around how does it work? What is it? Is it woo-woo? Is it science? And I think these are all fantastic questions. So how I love to describe it is the law of attraction is one of the 7 energetic laws of the universe. And it's also known as the law of vibration in these 7 energetic laws. And it's the law that determines like attracts like. So what you put out into the world, your energy, your frequency, your thoughts, your vibration, your words, is what is creating your reality. So to give you a practical example of that, we've probably all had those examples in our life where something annoying's happened and we've gone and told somebody, and you're like, you never guess what's happened. And then you text someone else and you tell someone else and something else happens. And by the end of the day, it's just been one of those days where you're ready to grab a bottle of wine and forget all about it. And on the flip side, we've had those days where something positive's happened and we've told somebody, or we've shared some positive news, or we're just feeling in that positive energy. And by the end of the day, we just feel like, gosh, it's been a really lucky day today. Everything's gone my way. I feel really positive. And this is the law of attraction in action. Our thoughts, our words, our energy creates our experiences. Now, I always caveat this with, when I say that explanation, we don't live in a world of instantaneous manifestation. We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. So not every single one of your thoughts is going to manifest. A lot of people, when they hear it, are like, oh, I can never think a negative thought again. Like, what if I think
you do a nice job talking about that, right? Where it's like, that can end up being, if you're never willing, we'll talk about shadow work and so forth. It's almost like if you're suppressing the things that you don't like about yourself, it's like you're keeping a secret, right? And that, that impacts the vibe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it can be so easy, especially with social media and highlights, everybody's posting their highlights in life to be like, I just want to think positive thoughts. And it's such a common teaching that was taught very early on by old school teachings and law of attraction of, like you can't have negative thoughts, you have to have positive thoughts. And I love to say to people, I tried it, didn't work. I'd love to know how it works for everybody else trying to force themselves not to have negative thoughts or just annoying thoughts. It doesn't even have to be negative. We are human. We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Not all of them manifest, not all of them, impact our life. We have a human cognitive mind as well. But what does impact our reality and our vibration is the consistent, persistent beliefs, identities, habits that we form, which obviously do create more of that long-term energy and vibration that, of course, does impact our reality eventually.
Yeah, I'll tell you my experience. I mean, I've been on this path for a while, like probably the like more specifically manifestation, not as long. But I've had some super like bring me to my knees emotional experiences that I'm like, no, 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 I don't want it, And then it was ultimately like the most cleansing thing. And when I just think about being willing to face those difficult parts of ourselves, the ones that we want to keep buried, that are just hard, that F with our identity, I personally, it's like, okay, I've got to go through this dark night of the soul. And the more I'm willing to not resist it, but just to accept, to feel those really difficult feelings, it's like getting to the other side, genuinely being laid bare. It's like, oh my God, there's freedom. And then there's room for like you talk a lot about being receptive and receiving. I just feel like being willing to do that work is for me has been extraordinarily like I've made so much more space for what I do want by being able to look at those hard parts of myself. And the thing that I keep, like, I write my journal every day too, I own it all. And it is like, yeah, baby, I own it all. Like, okay, some of that negative stuff that was there to teach me and that I've tried, that I've had to overcome, I need to own that too. And it's just been like this really liberating experience to, so to your point about the negativity, to say, I'm not going to resist the negativity, because it's like what they say, what you resist persists, right? But will you go into the fight? So you break it down into 5 steps, right? Will you break down those 5 steps of the law of attraction? And I feel like we could talk again for hours about it, but I'd love just to start there, so people watching and listening could go, okay, I can, let me start to actually practice this.
Yeah, so the basic steps that I break down into 5. So there are 3 traditional steps, which are spoken about a lot in old school teachings, which is ask, believe, receive. And these steps are great. They're still needed. They still feature in my steps. They are still fantastic. But
So
back
hang on, I
in,
just want to ask, believe, receive are the traditional ones. Okay.
yes, yeah. But when I went along my manifesting journey and started to write my books and, like really got really into the depths of it, I realized that there was so much more to just ask, believe, receive. And it felt like there was this huge leap between believe and receive. And it was like, hang on a minute, how do I get from all the way over here to all the way over there and receiving my desire? It's a big hurdle, it's a big leap. So I kept seeing in my communities, in my own journey, in my friends' journeys as well, that there was almost like this missing step. And when I came to write my books, I was like, right, if I could break this process down, if I could break down all the data, all the stories from my community, my experiences, everybody's experiences, one-to-one's experiences, what would I say the common themes are and the common patterns that I see? And it started really coming to me, whether it's channeling, whether it was just, logic of, this makes a lot more sense. But it was these 5 steps. And the third step that I've added in after believe is trust. And then step 4 is let go. And step 5 is receive. So to start right at the beginning, we have to ask for our intention first. That is what that asking step is. Now, when you set an intention, that can be done through spoken word, saying it, writing it down, meditating, vision boards, scripting. There are so many beautiful ways to ask for your intention, and you only need to ask once. That's the beauty of it. We're not going around every single day saying, I want a car, I want a car, I want a car. You only need to ask once. The
Oh,
universe
but
has
that's interesting. I'd love to understand that a little bit better, because I'm asking every day. I like write in my journal, I'm like, okay, this is da, da, da. And, and I think of like we've all heard the story of like Jim Carrey. He wrote himself a $10 million check, $40 million check, kept it in his wallet, right? So you're saying put it down and then just trust it's going to happen,
A little
rather
bit
than
more
kind
than
of
just
like,
trust.
sorry. Oh yeah, I'm skipping. But
It's a
yeah,
little
but
bit
it's
more than just
interesting.
trusting, but yeah.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah. But you're saying just write it down and then like kind of bury it.
don't necessarily bury it, but that Jim Carrey example is great because you explained it perfectly there. He wrote the check and he put it away. He didn't write 10 more checks. He didn't write a check every single day asking for that money. He wrote the check once. And the analogy that I love to give is imagine if we were in a coffee shop and you'd placed your order for a coffee and then I'm there saying, "Oh, I'll have a decaf coffee, please." And then the waitress is like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Oh, I'll have a decaf coffee, please." And I keep repeating myself.
I like got it. Oh, funny.
You'd be like,
Okay.
"Emma, shut up. Let her go make the drinks. She knows you want a decaf coffee. Like, just let her go." So this is how the universe works. You are that person placing that order. You only place your order once. And, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's in a cafe, whether it's, in a
Place the
restaurant.
order once. Yes, I
Yeah.
love.
You trust that they have got your order. You trust that they are going to the kitchen to prepare it. You trust that Amazon are packing your order and getting it ready for dispatch. You're not there. I mean, sometimes people might sit there watching delivery, but you're not there walking into the kitchen saying, "Where is it? Come on, where is it? Where is my food?" You probably expect them to probably spit in your food if you keep walking into the kitchen demanding where it is. So we've got to be that ultimate receiver. So the asking step is asking once, but asking with clarity. So it's not just, "I want to manifest money," because you could find a $10 bill on your counter after this podcast, right? And you're like, "Well, no, I wanted 100,000. So, why have I got this $10 bill?" So you have to be specific. If you want a certain amount of money, ask for that money. The universe reflects back to us. It's that divine mirror of life. So if you're turning up saying, "Well, I want to manifest a relationship." Okay, well, what does that relationship look like? If you're vague, you're going to have that vagueness reflected back to you. Whereas if you have clarity over your intention, that clarity will be reflected back in the results too. So that's the ask step. And there's lots that goes into it, but asking once is important because otherwise you get stuck in that asking step. And I see this so often where people will say, "Emma, I'm asking for it every single day and it's not happening." And those analogies that I gave you are the perfect reason why
Okay.
it's not, because you're not moving it down those
I'm
next
waiting for
steps.
my decaf coffee. Where is it? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. No, I love that. I love that so much. But let me ask you this. You've talked about this and I'm definitely going to ask you about how you manifested your amazing fiance. But when you ask for the intention, you're really clear, right? You've talked about how you want it to feel, right? I mean, so there's this idea of, yeah, I want the $100,000 or $1 million or the great job, but you should actually really home into how it's going to make you feel, right? Isn't that an important part of it?
1,000,000%. Manifesting is feeling, it is experiencing. And, I've had it, I've lived this experience. And I know so many people listening may have done this as well, where I wanted to manifest a relationship. And this is my previous relationship. And I manifested it and I felt absolutely rubbish in it. I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And that's because I hadn't done the inner work at that point. But also it's because I wasn't focusing on how I wanted to feel. I was just focusing on the relationship. So if someone's wanting to manifest money or a job or a career, you don't want to have that money and that job, but feel miserable inside. You want to be happy, fulfilled, joyful. So it's so important that you identify not just what you want, but how you want to feel with that experience in your life. Because especially with money, it's not the money you want, it's an experience, it's a feeling. So what does that money represent for you? Does it represent freedom? Does it represent time freedom? Does it represent something that it allows you to do, which, money does allow us to do a lot of different things. So identify not just with money, but with all your desires, what that core feeling is that you want to experience, because that is what you have to cultivate here and now. I'm kind of skipping ahead a bit, but that is what you want to cultivate because you you have to become the vibrational match for your desire. You have to become that version of yourself who emanates that feeling, whether it's joy, happiness, whatever the word is. So if you're always saying, well, when I have that relationship, I'll be joyful, or when I have that job, I'll be fulfilled, you're always chasing. It's always when it arrives. But the key and the secret here is your manifestation will actually bring you nothing. You have to feel what it's going to bring you here and now to magnetize that into your reality.
Totally, totally. And we're going to get everybody, just don't worry. We're going to get into it, right? We're not just going to leave you hanging there like, oh, how do I do it? We're going to get into it. But I love that. Okay. So that asking for the intention, feeling it, having that clarity, now believe.
Yeah. So this is the second step. So once we've placed our order with the universe, our intention, now it's time to go inwards into the subconscious, into the mind. So what can often happen is when people set intentions, they will then have thoughts that come up or limiting beliefs, or they might have their ego and inner critic pipe up saying, well, who are you to do that? Or you can't do that. That's not possible. We know the score. We know what our inner critic loves to deliver to us in terms of beliefs. So this is where we start to look at energetic blockages and physical blockages. So what stands in between us and our desire? What are our limiting beliefs, fears, identities around that? What is stopping us from being that version of ourselves here and now? So that's where the inner work happens, where we start to align our mindset, our beliefs, and our identities with the version of ourselves who has that. So I always see manifestation as like an initiation of there's going to be a journey that happens. There's going to be an up leveling where you step up and into this reality with this new desire. And that might mean up leveling some, beliefs, your mindset. But, every manifestation is different. Some people might have huge resistance around love, for example, like I did. Whereas money, yeah, that's easy for me. So everybody's stories, everybody's journeys are different. And, these beliefs, these limiting beliefs and fears and blockages are all formed from our childhood, from ages 0 to 7, when our minds are like sponges and we're saying yes to everything. So how we perceive our parents with money, we're receiving that as, oh, that's how money works, and how our parents and caregivers and family are around love. Oh, that's how love works. So we're being fed these stories of how all these different things work in life. And then from it, obviously we can develop them later on in life as well. But really from that age 7 onwards, we have those core identities and patterns and beliefs that will then play out in those areas moving forward. So every single human being has limiting beliefs and fears. It'll be different for everyone. Some people will have, decades of stuff to unpack. Others, maybe not so much. So it's, you don't know what's going to come up or what's in your journey until you go along it. And again, I've had manifestations that appear like that. And I've also had other manifestations that have taken time because I've had to go and do that work and really look at, why I have that belief or why that blockage has come up. So that belief step's important because it's not just believing the universe can serve it and that you're worthy of having it. It's also looking at who you are and who you need to energetically become. Because at the end of the day, you are the version of yourself who has your desire right here and now. You don't need a whole personality transplant, but ultimately your energy and your frequency has to align with your desire to attract that into your life. So if you don't feel worthy of having that 6-figure business, how are you going to manifest that when you're not that energetic match to it currently? So that's why that inner work piece is so important.
And how important to you are things like affirmations, meditations, these kinds of techniques that can start to chip away? I mean, I'll volunteer this. I mean, I'm somebody who is, I'm glad to say, I've crossed the river from feeling unworthy, unimportant. Those really tough, very limiting beliefs that are so common. And I've done a ton of that inner work, and being on the other side, it's like, oh my God, it's just bliss. Right. And it's easier and easier to get that vibrational match having done that work. But what are some of the things, so I've been like chipping away at it personally, but what are some of the things listeners can do to start that process? Because it can feel overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, I don't even like myself. You're asking me to have unconditional love for myself and believe. Like, what are 2 or 3 things that people can do, maybe even starting today? In addition, you've got wonderful books, you got your podcast and so forth, but can you just break it down a little bit more?
Yeah. And I think the inner work, like you say, can seem overwhelming because it's like, oh, where do I start? I don't know what my limiting beliefs are, or I don't know what I've got going on in
Yeah.
there. And,
Oh,
you
I
know,
mean, that's the big thing. It's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And then you get into it and you're like, "Oh my crap." But I feel like once you start to see it and get it, it's almost like that awareness is half the battle, right? Although it's scary and it requires a lot of courage, but it's like if you don't do the inner work, then you can't get the outcome you want, right? I mean, it's a necessary. It's like the hero's journey.
yeah. And it's, intention and action equals results. So if your intention is coming from a place of not knowing your worth or feeling like, I can't have that in my life, then you are going to get the same results until the intention and action changes. And even our actions can be impacted by our limiting beliefs of, you may want to really start that business, but you're petrified to put yourself out there. You're like, nobody wants to hear from me. Like, who am I to do that? And that was definitely one of the beliefs I had in the beginning. So, it can stop us from really getting those results we want because our actions and our intention and our energy is going to be way off. But one thing I really love to recommend to people to know where to start is look at what starts to feel easy when you're manifesting and where there's more resistance. Is there any inner talk that comes up? Write the inner talk down because this is so helpful in the inner work when you have statements to work with. And a lot of them will start with I, for example, of like, who am I to do that? Or I'm not worthy of that. So write these statements down because this will help you hugely when you have like a whole list of the things, that frequently comes up for you, or even just feelings and emotions. Maybe there's a feeling of jealousy that comes up for you, or a feeling of comparison. Anytime you start to feel something that you don't like or doesn't feel good, journal it down because this will be a really great way to keep track of what you're feeling, what's coming up, and where to start with that. But the best way that I can recommend for people to start to identify where to do the inner work is by me asking you this question. And I always ask this whenever I go on a podcast or a talk. I'm like, right, everybody, tune into your desire. So if you can do this now with me, I want you to think about a desire, your manifestation that you really want to call it more than anything. And close your eyes if that helps as well. You can see it in your mind's eye and just see yourself living this reality with your desire in your life now. And feel the joy, feel the happiness, the excitement as it's already in your life. It's already happened. It is part of your life. And I'm going to say something now, and I want you to identify where in your body you feel this as I say it. Your manifestation is not going to happen. And just notice whether you feel a sensation, a heat. Maybe it feels like a punch somewhere in the body.
Yeah, like in the gut. So for
Yeah.
me, like, right there.
So there you go. There's right where it is. So it could be linked to a chakra. I sometimes say if it's in a certain chakra point, an energetic point, that's a good place to start. If it's in the stomach for you, if it's top stomach, that's solar plexus. Bottom stomach is the sacral chakra. So you can sometimes like pin it to a chakra, but not always. I always say go into wherever it was because it might be in someone's elbow, knee, ear, for example. So there is no right or wrong with it. It's where it is for you and what it felt like. So journal upon it. Where was it in the body? How did it feel? What was the sensation? Was it a heat, a coldness, an anxiety? And then I say, go deeper into it. So now really zoom in, focus to where it was. And does it have a color? And if it does, it doesn't have to, but if it does, write down the color. And then zoom into that color, go right to its core, right to its center. Imagine yourself sat right in it now and see what words or feelings come out of that color energy. So you might just get a word, a couple of words, maybe even a sentence. But just seeing what words then come out of there and writing those down so you've got those as well. And then from this, you can then, I normally ask if I was in a session with people, I would say, how old is that I that feels whatever the emotions are you've just written down? So you might have an age that pops into your head straight away. Maybe it's just a number that makes absolutely no sense, just writing whatever number comes through. And then I say, and what memory or feeling comes through with this age? So maybe if it was 7, you might have a memory of when you were 7 years old and your dad said something to you. Or maybe you're in school and a situation happened. It might be related to the feelings that you've written down. It might be completely unrelated, but If a memory has come up, write the memory down, or it could just be a feeling, it could just be a sensation. And there you go. That's how you start to do the work. So, right then, what I've walked you through is how you start to identify the blocks and beliefs. So, I'm not the worst teacher ever. Your manifestations are going to happen, but I say it because then it obviously gets the inner work to come up to identify where the lack is, or where that part of you that's like, oh, I need that manifestation, because that's where it's going to be holding that resistance.
I love that. I'm like kind of trying to like hold back my emotions from just even that feeling, and it's like, oh, of to sit down and to actually do this. I can see how this would certainly for me crack me wide open, and just go, okay, yeah, I'm gonna sit in the discomfort and messiness of this so that I can get it right, and then I can tell that part of myself whatever I need to say, right? And I love that. That's awesome. That's so awesome, Emma. Thank you. Okay, everybody, if unless you've crossed the river, this is your homework today. Don't wait till tomorrow. All right, so we've got number one, ask for the intention, super clear, feel it. We got two, believe and do that inner work so that you are worthy to receive, and so you can have that vibrational match. Now, number three, trust.
Yeah. So now we're moving to our co-creational part of manifestation. So we are always co-creating with the universe. We go 50% of the way and the universe meets us 50% of the way. Not 90-10, it's not 10-90. As an ex 90% to myself, I can tell you it definitely doesn't work. It is definitely 50-50. So I think there's some beautiful things that the 10%ers and the 90%ers can learn from one another. So your 10%ers are the people who are telling me they're going to win the lottery, they're going to manifest that win. And I'm like, great, how often do you play? And they're like, oh no, I haven't bought a ticket, but I'm going to win it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay. That's great. I'm loving this enthusiasm, but you kind of got to take that inspired action and buy a ticket. So those are your 10%ers. Your 90%ers are the people like how I used to be, who will make it happen of like, don't worry, universe, I've got this. I'm going to
Oh my
do
God, you and I are cut
action.
from the same cloth in so many ways. Like you're hardcore like me. I mean, so many things. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We are vibrational matches, but sorry, go ahead.
So, the 90%ers are very much, I'm going to make this happen. Don't worry, universe. I'm going to take every action, make sure every I is dotted, T is crossed.
Yeah, totally. Like white knuckle it. And I just want to shout out to you. In fact, I just want to shout out, everybody listen to this. Oh, I had it written down right here at the top. I just had it here just a second ago. When you talk about, oh my God, that's annoying. Oh, Emma does less and Emma attracts more. I'm like, snap, sister. That's what I need. I'm like super type A Aries. So I'm all about Andrea does less, Andrea attracts more. Like that whole business of giving, especially for people like us, overachievers, people pleasers, like, when you just feel like you need to produce to earn your worth, like that express permission. And I love how you phrase it. Emma does less, Emma attracts more. I'm like, yeah, baby. And so I want everybody just to like internalize that, because that's real. And you're right. And again, I'm with you with this, like you can grind and white knuckle it, and that does get results. You've had an extreme amount of success. I've been successful through that approach, but fuck if it's not exhausting, right? And it's not very high vibe, right? It's not very high vibe. Right? Like I feel like I am doing less and like more pleasure, which I want to talk to you about, more of like the good stuff and the fun. And it's just like, whoa, like inviting some ease and gentleness into my life. I'll take it. So yeah. Okay. So sorry, I totally interrupted you, but I just, like 90%. So you're talking 90%.
Yeah. So even, the 90%ers are just going to make it happen, but then still hit that block of, oh, why am I not receiving? Well, you're not relaxing into receiving like the 10%ers are. So you can see where the misbalance is in both ends of the scale there. So from the 90%ers, the 10%ers can learn how to take inspired action and how to meet the universe halfway. And the 90%ers can learn from the 10%ers how to relax a little bit more, how to trust and receive and, be at that 50% point of receiving. So there's beauty in both ends and there's no right or wrong here. It's more just witnessing where you are and how you can step into that 50% mark. So in trust, it's taking inspired and aligned action to put yourself into the field of opportunity and possibility. So it is where we start to embody, it's where we start to really walk our talk, and we are putting ourselves in that field. So if you want to manifest a job, for example, you're going to update your CV, your resume, you're going to put yourself out there, look for jobs, apply for jobs. If you want to buy a house, you're going to start looking for houses, going for viewings. So this is what that aligned and inspired action is. It's not about doing chaotic action. It's not about doing every action. It's following your intuition and following what feels in alignment for you to meet the universe halfway so that it can put, people, opportunities, doors, abundance in your path so that you can start to receive those aligned opportunities. So that's what happens in the trust step. It is also, yes, trusting the process, trusting in divine timing. And obviously through the belief step, you've built that layer of trust. You already trust in the universe. You already trust that it's happening. It's more of a walking that trust at that point in that step.
Yeah. I mean, this whole business of being relaxed and trusting to receive more easily. Ooh, I mean, that can be really hard. And that to me, I mean, personally speaking, that's been a really interesting part of my journey because it's definitely gotten easier. And I think every day, sometimes multiple times a day, I'm writing trust in my journal, right? Because it's like, oh my God, I'm like hitting some kind of, challenge. And it's like, Andrea, in fact, if anything, the older I get, the more it's like, ooh, that challenge is there to teach you something. So don't resist it. Like, what is it there to teach you? Be honest, Andrea, be honest. And I'm like, I don't want to learn that lesson now, but okay. But yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so we got 1, 2, and 3. 4 is, this is a hard one, but an important one. Let go.
Yes, arguably one of the most difficult steps in the process, but the most important. I mean, obviously asking is important as well. We have to start at step 1, but this is the step that was missed out. Same with trust. And I thought, like, why is no one talking about aligned action? Why is no one talking about letting go and surrendering? And before manifesting, I had never let go and surrendered a day in my life as a 90%er, as you can imagine. So, letting go and surrendering was alien to me. It was this like, what? I have to set my intention, change my mindset, take action, and then just let it go. And there's a big misconception with letting go. Many people think that it's giving up, and it's not at all. It's becoming okay with both outcomes, this or something better for the highest good of all. And we should always be saying that when we're setting our intentions anyway, because we as humans, we think we know best, but the universe has a 360 picture. It can see what is for our highest good and what maybe not be such a great manifestation for us. So there is divine protection at play as well. So letting go is an embodiment. I say that alignment and embodiment comes into this 4th step. It's really where we are becoming the version of ourselves who has our desire. We're no longer asking, we're no longer taking action, we're no longer faking it till we make it. We are that version of ourselves. It is a becoming, an embodiment. So it's being in the present moment. It's embodying the walk that you've done along those first 3 steps to be able to be that vessel of receiving your desire. So it's a very much embodiment. And this is where acting as if comes into that 4th step of letting go as well. I like to call it embodiment rather than acting as if, because we're not acting, we are. We know we are that person at that point. So that is what, goes into that 4th step of letting go. But it's easier said than done. A lot of people try to force themselves into letting go. And they're like, I'm in step 4, Emma, I'm letting go. And I'm like, okay, you are not letting go at all. You are in step 2 of belief still, because there are blocks here which are stopping you from letting go. Or maybe you haven't taken the action, or you're still stuck in step 1 asking every day, for example. So letting go is as easy as breathing when it's authentic, and it has to be authentic. Everything in the manifestation steps or sphere or manifestation as a whole has to come from a place of authenticity. You can't fake it till you make it with energy, because the universe can, the universe picks up on your energy. So there are
I like you say this. You say your vibes don't lie.
Yes.
But what do you mean by that?
So the universe is a divine mirror. The universe isn't someone who sat there being like, well, Andrea, I can tell that you don't really believe that you're worthy of this, so I'm not going to give it to you. It's not it's not in that sense at all. The universe is not biased in that way. It's just responding to us. So what it is responding to is your energy, is your frequency. So if you still have that belief of you're not worthy, then you're going to keep getting the reflection of that energy reflected back to you. So when it is energy doesn't lie, it's, imagine yourself stood in front of a divine mirror. Imagine yourself stood in the mirror. Who are you showing up as? What is your energy saying? They always say our energy introduces us before our words do. And it's so true, because we can just pick up on stuff. We know when someone's faking it. We know when someone truly believes, in whatever they're saying or whatever it is, the situation. So yeah, it's really about knowing that, it's coming from a place of authenticity where you are naturally and effortlessly letting go because it's already yours.
Are there any, I mean, by the way, totally. And I've been so fortunate to do so much work that when I get into that mode where it's like, ooh, I feel it. Like, it's like this heart coherence. It's on, man, baby. What is a tip or two when people are like, oh, they're just like you say, it's easy as breathing. Are there any tips or hacks when it's like you feel, because I mean, just keeping it real, I'm in a current situation where I've also felt some resistance, and I keep kind of going back and like chipping away to get to that place of surrender. You talk about how this part of the journey can bring you to your knees, which it has. And that to me kind of even goes back to the trust thing. It's like, okay, this is work I need to do to clear the space. But what can people do if they're kind of in limbo?
Yeah. And what you just said there was so perfect, because it is trust. When we are feeling that piece of, oh, is it going to happen? I can't just let go. Like, oh my God, I'm getting that anxiety again. Is it going to happen? We're not in step 4. We're not. And I hate to say it, because I'd love to be in step 4 with everybody, but you're not. You're in step 3 of trust, because that level of unwavering trust in the universe and in yourself is not there. And many people think that trust is something we place externally of, I trust the universe. I trust that that's going to happen. Trust always starts within. The inner always reflects the outer. So if you're not trusting that your desire is going to come to you, if you're not trusting in the timing, if you're not trusting in the universe's ability to manifest that into your life, you don't trust yourself. And that was a really big wake up call for myself, because when that question was put towards me of like, well, do you trust yourself to make decisions, Emma? Do you trust yourself to hold that desire? Do you trust yourself to nurture that manifestation? I was like, oh shit, no,
I feel
no,
that,
no.
baby. I mean, I like listening to you. It's like, oh my God, those are the right questions, right? And then I think that if you're being honest and the answer is no, and it kind of kicks you back to step 2, right? And am I right? Like it becomes iterative, right? And it's almost like it's this whole amazing journey to get to where you need to get to, but you got to go through it's a journey, right? It's a process.
And trust is built as well. I always say there's 2 pillars to trust. The first pillar is lived experience. So someone who's picking up manifestation today when they're hearing this podcast is going to have a very different level of lived experience, or, a catalog of manifestations, to someone who's been doing this 5 years, 20 years, that person is going to have a different natural level of belief, because they've seen it work in their life. They've seen it happen. So they know the universe has their back. They know those things are going to manifest because they've done it before. So there's lived experience, which does build over time. And I always recommend people to write a trust list of like all the times the universe has met you, all the times that, against all odds, whatever you wanted manifested, even though you thought it was impossible, or a time where you really needed a miracle and the universe delivered it. Because when you have that physical list, it helps the subconscious mind to see practical, evidence of, oh, I am supported. Oh, my manifestations do happen. Oh, I am actually really good at manifesting. So that's the lived experience part. And the second pillar is then mindset, which you're right, goes back to step 2. So it's looking at what limiting beliefs or fears could be blocking that level of unwavering trust in yourself first and foremost, and then to the universe.
Well, thank you for that. That's so helpful. And I'm really like sort of savoring. It's as easy as breathing, right? Like to me, that is a kind of high watermark. When I'm thinking about sort of the blocks or where things are easy like that, I'm going to come back to. And it's like, is this easy as breathing right now? Because if it's not, then I need to be honest with myself and, go back and keep going. Okay. Now we've got number 5, my favorite, time to receive.
Yes. So a lot of people see step 5 receiving as great, it's here, job done, don't need to do anything. But actually, I always think it's like step 1 and step 2 of receive. So the first part of receive is still a step. We still have to, be in the step to receive. So I always love to ask people, and again, for us 90%ers, this is a big old question of how much do you allow yourself to receive in life? That might be gifts, love, hugs, support, help, whatever it is. How much do you allow yourself to receive in life? Because I was terrible at this. And then, was it any surprise to people that I had a problem with receiving? No, because I looked at my relationship with receiving in every other area and it was, shocking. Like I was
Well,
the
it
hyper.
kind of comes back to worthiness, right? If you don't feel worthy to receive, if you doubt yourself and all those things, and I feel like if you're coming from a place of fear, it's like I can't, I'm not worthy, and I'd rather just do it myself, right? Because I feel like at least I can count on myself. Like control issues, like it feels like there's a lot that kind of bubbles up. And again, I can completely relate to how you used to be, because I used to be like that too.
Yeah, and so many of us are. And, the divine feminine energy that we all have within us, we all have divine feminine and divine masculine energy. I always see the first 3 steps as very divine masculine, like ask, believe, action, trust, and then letting go and receive are really feminine steps. So we then have to step back and let the universe meet us. And for people who are those 90%ers, like that is so alien. They're so used to doing everything for themselves and everyone that as women as a whole, we are such givers. So it is sometimes hard to allow ourselves to receive. But I always say to people, challenge yourself to receive even just 10% more this week, whether it's support, help, more money, whatever it is, just allow yourself to receive more because you'll see how your receiving muscle then expands and how much more abundantly you receive your manifestations because you're in the vortex of receiving, you're receiving regularly. So you're able to receive your desires with ease.
Well, and changing your behavior is so key to changing your emotions, and to your point about, being more receptive. It's like if we keep doing the same thing, we can't expect a different outcome. So yeah, I feel like just even taking those small steps to say, okay, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to kind of get into the discomfort of maybe even asking for more help or so forth. That I feel like that is an important, like, again, kind of chipping away at your ability to receive. Okay. So you said that you've got 2 parts. So that's the first part. What's the second part of receiving?
The second part is receiving your desire.
Okay.
And I
Yeah. Oh, good. Yes. We are there.
finally here. So in this part, I say, it's important to express gratitude, to be present, to enjoy your beautiful manifestation that you have in your life now. I think a lot of the time people are like, right, what's next? And, it's really important that you enjoy that for you and you enjoy, the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your abundance. So I always say to people like, be present, enjoy it, enjoy your manifestation. And when it's time and when you feel ready to set a new intention, you'll know it will drop in.
Well, and that's high vibe, right? I mean, to the extent that you're feeling those positive feelings, I mean, gratitude is super high vibe, joy, pleasure. I mean, to me, to the extent that you continue to cultivate that vibrational match, I mean, it feels like you're creating. I'm a big fan of virtuous cycles, right? Like kind of trying to create that flywheel. And so it's like, all right, I got it. I'm gonna savor it. I'm gonna sort of celebrate this. Let me continue to add positivity, if you will, into the flywheel. Okay, I am dying for you to share with us all your amazing story about how you manifested the greatest fiance in the world.
Well, it's funny because I only shared that video recently on YouTube. And I mean, we've been together 4 years now and we're getting married this year. And um, I kind of held off from sharing that video for a while just because I had manifested a relationship before, 8 years ago now, gosh. And I'd obviously documented that on my YouTube channel. And I was like, how I manifested my dream man. And that video went super viral. It was my most watched video. And then when that relationship didn't work out, obviously people were like, well, what happened? And obviously I was like, well, what happened as well, as I'm living that experience and that heartbreak. And that is what fueled Hurt, Healing, Healed, the book as well, that relationship. So there was so much going on. So I think
But
for me,
even that's amazing. Can I just pause right there for a second for everybody listening and watching? It's how that, just that necessary um heartache, setback, call it what you will, but it was like that had to happen for Emma to get to Alex, right? And so often I feel like back to like the steps of the law of attraction, when we don't get what we want when we want it, we start to doubt if we think we should be zigging and we end up zagging, and that really throws us off course. Like I feel like it's kind of back to like that, like trust that these seeming curveballs are actually important steps to get to where we need to get to. And that can feel really hard. But it
yeah,
sounds like that's
100%.
exactly what needed to happen for you.
Yeah, and I mean, doing that on a public stage as well is, not
Extra hard.
easy.
Oh my God. Like, ah.
So,
Uh-huh.
like, obviously people are like, well, okay, we come to Emma for manifesting. She manifested her dream guy. What happened? But I always say to people, I did manifest my dream guy. I manifested that dream guy for that version of myself in 2016 who was traumatized.
Oh my God. I love
And
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now, when I set the intention to manifest a relationship this time, not necessarily a dream guy, like I changed a lot of the vocabulary around what I was manifesting because it just felt more in alignment to me here and now to use the word like relationship or marriage. My wants and what was on my dream list was so different to what I wrote in
So
2016.
what,
And
like you do the compare and contrast. So there was, previous guy, we'll call him, I don't even know what previous guy versus Alex. So what's the compare and contrast between what you were, what those intentions were?
yeah, so in 2016, obviously I was fresh to manifesting. So I was just learning about it. So I wrote my dream list of like my dream guy. And obviously, because a lot of the teachings focus on like looks and, a lot of like how they should look, naturally I was like, oh, so I should write down what this guy looks like. So he matched that list 100%. But, should I have focused on like a nice person and like loyal and kind? Yeah, I should have, because that was not the experience I had.
Well, but that is actually interesting in a way. I mean, to the extent that you actually manifested what you thought you were looking for. I mean, it almost is testament to it working. It was like you were manifesting the wrong things, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and the universe was reflecting it to me. It was like, okay, you want a guy with brown hair and brown eyes? Good, but you're gonna have some karmic lessons with that. So for me, it was showing me like, one, I needed that on a karmic level, 1,000,000% to be able to live my purpose, walk through, live the shadow work and obviously up leveling myself to be able to be the person I am today as a teacher, as an author, but also as a lover to Alex, my partner. Like I wouldn't be the partner I am to him if I hadn't have gone through that experience, if I hadn't have had my heart broken and, learned what unconditional love is through that hurt, healing, heal journey. So all of it is relevant and all of it is needed. But when I came to write my list in 2020 of what I wanted to manifest in a relationship, it was absolutely more feeling based. It was, how did I want to feel? It was, how did I want that relationship to feel? What were the real characteristics and qualities of that person that I truly valued and that was really important in this season of my life. And obviously, when I manifested my first relationship, I was like 22, 23, and this time I was 27. So, like a lot had changed. I'd matured, I'd lived that experience as well. So it was a huge contrast. But I think, we have to go through these things to learn. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, and just even in trusting in that process. I mean, I feel like it's almost like um, these like rites of passage, that it's like you almost have to have the setbacks and the heartache and the doubt and the disappointments to be able to say, okay, I've got this, and I know, I'm going to learn from this or not, right? Like it feels like how you meet those disappointments and setbacks is going to determine whether you actually learn the lesson and can move on more wisely, or if you're going to keep repeating them. And I feel like I used to be, and sometimes am still, resistant to that disappointment. And you know what I mean? And it's like, ooh, if I can meet it a little more openly and like, oh, there's something for me to learn here, back to trust. Like I trust myself. That feels like a way again to really clear the path to manifesting and actually being able to receive what we really want. Okay, so for you, it came down to you kind of had the, if you will, the wrong list or the right list at the time, which ended up being the wrong list for the future version of wonderful Emma, Queen. I love how you call everybody the Queen when you're. I listened to your audiobook and it was like, oh, she's calling me Queen. Yeah, baby. um, and then you wrote the right list, and like you said, it was the feelings that you would have, the qualities that you were looking for in him, the experience, the characteristics in the relationship. What else did you do?
So the inner work was like the biggest part of it for sure. And I think before I was always so focused on like, oh, I have to find my soulmate. And, not really realizing that I'm my own soulmate and I have to want to spend the rest of my life with myself first before, I find someone that I want to spend the rest of my life with. So for me, it was really a big eye opening moment of, do I want to spend the rest of my life with myself right now? No is probably the truthful answer. So I really focused on self love, self acceptance, shadow work, meeting every aspect of myself. I mean, there's nothing like a karmic relationship to show you those shadows and show you those reflections of where that work needs to be done. And I always say as well with manifesting, we're always manifesting through the lens of our beliefs. So what I was manifesting in 2016 is so polar opposite to what I'm manifesting now because my mindset, my belief is so different, so different as I've done that inner work. So it is normal for your desires to up level. It is normal for you to desire different things at different parts of your journey because you are growing and up leveling. And that's so important to acknowledge as well. So I became my own best friend. I became my own soulmate. I really worked. And I think there was such a fear for me of like never meeting that person and being alone because, I'm an only child. Like I had such a small friendship circle as well. So for me, I was like, gosh, there isn't a ton of people here, if anything happens to anybody. So for me, I was like, that was my biggest fear. So it was actually confronting that fear so head on, where I was like, okay, how do I fully accept that I could be destined to be by myself this lifetime? How can I make that the best thing ever? How can I accept that and love that and make that the coolest thing ever? And a lot of people would say, like, that is the most terrible manifesting advice she's ever given you because you shouldn't focus on what you don't want. You should focus on what you do want. I do not agree with that at all. It's when we face those fears, those worst case scenarios head on, instantly the power goes. The power over us goes because we've already addressed it and we're like, okay, maybe it's not what I want, but actually I would be okay. I could still be happy. I would still have a great quality of life. There's so much I could still do. And it may not look like what I think it looks like, but that doesn't mean other things can't happen and other ways of love coming into my life. So it was really that letting go and releasing. It was really that piece around deep acceptance. And guess what happened straight afterwards? As soon as I was in that place of, I'm so happy, everything's great, I don't even need a relationship, in he walks.
Amazing. Good job, sister. I mean, your point, it's like, um, your vibes don't lie, and just it's like it 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 has to be real. It has to be authentic, right? So good for you for doing that and having that clarity. I mean, it just the what comes to mind listening to you and feeling that actually is you were like, it's abundance and I'm going to make it happen. Game on. And that, that changing your vibe, um, there's a receptiveness in that versus it strikes me, versus like, oh, kind of, cause I feel like fear is fear is a wall versus, love and abundance being receptive. Right. And it sounds like that, like you say, you're doing that inner work really primed you to just go, okay, cool. In fact, somebody that used to work for me, and she was a salesperson, and she would have this approach in sales. She'd be like, buy if you want to buy, don't buy if you want to, don't buy, and it's like that kind of a little more casual, a little more letting go. I've tried to, I've adapted that a lot. It's like, yeah, it happens. It's great. Doesn't happen. That's great. Right. And it just shifts the energy. Right. Versus, I mean, nobody wants to be sold to buy a salesperson that's feeling that pressure, like putting that pressure on, like they're desperate, like nobody wants to buy, or be in love with somebody desperate.
Yeah, and they always say, your desire will happen when you need it the least. And if you are putting out that energy of like lack and desperation and want and need, think about that's going to be reflected back to you more of those feelings of need and want and lack. Whereas when you are in that place of trust, that unwavering trust and divine surrender, you're in that place of ultimate trust, that ultimate receiving where abundance is abundance at the end of the day. And, we sometimes think that we know what's best and we know how it should look, and we force and control it and place expectations on our desires of how it should look and when it should arrive and all these different things. But that's not manifestation. That is control. That is the ego wanting to, cling on to things. And one of the other 7 energetic laws of the universe is the law of rhythm, and the law of polarity is another one. And they teach us that, just like nature, do the trees cling onto their leaves, screaming to stay in autumn? No, they let them effortlessly go, knowing that come spring, they will grow again and new, more abundant shoots and flowers will spring through. So I always look at nature as the perfect reminder of letting go and surrendering, because it is all around us. That death rebirth cycle of letting go and then creating the new, like, happens every single day around us in nature. But as humans, we're almost, we are actually wired to not like change or not be able to let
Yeah, I
go.
want to
So
control because there's a perception of safety in control. Well, you talk about like committing to not giving a fuck and allowing myself to truly receive. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good hack. Right. And that is so hard for so many of us with the kinds of limiting beliefs that we've been talking about where, ooh, we need that approval. We want to please, right? Because we're looking for that validation from the inside out, and really, like, legitimately owning it and not giving a fuck is like, that feels like a big breakthrough. Like, to really be able to do that, it's like, okay, you're in a different place.
And essentially, it's reclaiming your power. It's reclaiming your power in that situation to be like, okay, this external situation may be happening. I may not have control over it, but what I do always have control over is my response and my energy. So, how can I chuck that in the fuck it bucket, as I call it? And how can I reclaim my power in this situation? Like, instead of feeling helpless, instead of feeling powerless, instead of feeling like, this, you're on your knees, there's nothing you can do, there is always something that you can do, even if it's how you respond, even if it's just that simple statement of, I reclaim my power and call all the lost pieces back to myself. Like, I repeat that daily if I can, because as soon as I do, I reclaim my power and call back all the lost pieces of myself. And as soon as you say it, I'm just like, oh, there you go, there's that power.
Well, totally, and it's just, to me, it's like back to the trust thing. It's like, "Okay, I've got this," and I just think of the different relationships and situations where I've given away my power so unconsciously, right? And then when I'm, kind of feeling frustrated and really tuning in, it's like, "Oh, I did that," right? And to your point, like reclaiming those lost pieces, maybe feeling a little bit of grief of, what we gave away, but then ultimately owning it. I mean, to me, it's like, you again, we I know we only have like 10 seconds left. I want to keep talking to you, but you talk so beautifully in your book about shadow work, and we've talked about it a little bit today. But this idea of just having the courage to embrace, to look at and embrace those darker, harder parts of ourselves. Like, to me, when I think about, we can't be whole and integrated if we just want to pick the bright, breezy spots, right? And those dark sides, to me, are the ones that need the love and gentleness and, all that stuff that can be hard. But it feels like when we do that, it's easier and easier to reclaim our power and say, you know what, I'm not going to give a fuck. I'm going to own it all. But that's, back to, I think, let me look back, two, believing.
Yes. Yeah, and it's reclaiming all those parts of us. Our shadow is not something to be feared. It's not a dark or horrible part of ourselves. It's literally that part of us that just needs to be loved back into the light. It's just, there's the law of polarity teaches there's no right or wrong, good or bad, light or dark. it is all us. We are all one. It is all part of us. It's just integrating it in a way where we acknowledge it and accept it and love it so that, and I always remember this one quote someone told me. Karen Kay came on my podcast years ago and she said, Emma, the people who are the true manifestors and the true light workers are the people who have walked through hell, faced their shadows and reclaimed it. And I was like, amen.
Walking through fire, baby. I think I often say this, just in conversation and reflect on it in my own journal. Oh my God, I'm being forged. Oh my God, I'm going through the crucible. Oh my God. It's like just all of that is the path to me ultimately to freedom. And, you talked about authenticity. It's like you can't be authentic if you don't own it all, right? I want to keep talking to you, Emma. Don't go. Come back. You've got all these cool rituals and numerology. I want to hear about 33, year 9. I'm like, I got so much more. So promise you'll come back soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Then I will release you. I will let you go and surrender. I know you need to go. Any last quick, teeny tiny or giant thing that you want to leave the Getting Open guests with? Or audience with, excuse me.
Just remember that it's already yours. You do not have to be this different version of yourself or a completely different person to manifest your desires. It is already yours and you want it so badly because the future version of yourself already has it.
Oh my God. Can we just post that on my forehead every time I look in the mirror? Just remember it is already yours. And say that last part again.
And you want it so badly because the future version of yourself already has it.
The future version of yourself already has it. Yes. Oh my God. Queen. Thank you. Emma Mumford, you are such a gift. I so appreciate you coming on my show today. Thank you.
Oh, come back. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Oh my gosh. Emma Mumford. How amazing is she? I want to go back and watch this episode 5 times. She just gave so many great nuggets. And boy, folks, I hope you took as much away from this episode as I did and feel genuinely empowered, knowing that the setbacks and disappointments are such a key part of getting what you want. But I just remember, what does she say? Just remember it is already yours and your future self already has it. I just feel that. I hope you do too. As always, I would love to hear from you, whether you're commenting on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your episodes. I appreciate your feedback so very much. You can also email me at gettingopen@yourtango.com. If you don't subscribe or follow the show, please, please, please do. I don't want you to miss any of these amazing episodes that I bring to you, my team and I bring to you with our full hearts, with so much gratitude and joy. It is such a gift and pleasure to be able to create the show for you. I hope you love it as much as I love making it, and we'll see you next time.